Have you ever noticed how, in these massive, epic stories, a hero's love for their family can just suddenly warp into this apocalyptic rage? It's intense, right? Well, today we're stepping into a deeply emotional, highly intense world to explore exactly that. In this explainer, we're unpacking a piece of source material that is essentially a lyrical journey into the fierce, almost destructive love a son has for his father. We're doing a deep dive into hypermasculine loyalty, the kind where devotion completely erases the self and the instinct to protect, yeah, it escalates into total annihilation. We're going to break down how these intense themes weave together, and honestly, the imagery we're looking at is just incredibly vivid.
So, this sets up the core psychological mystery we're unraveling today. Why on earth would a son want to literally burn the world down for his father? Like, what pushes human devotion to the point where love just becomes synonymous with mass destruction? Because we aren't just talking about defending someone here. We're talking about a willingness to completely obliterate the earth just to keep one person safe.
Okay, moving into section 1, End of Darkness, The Hunt Begins. The poem opens by setting a very specific, moody atmosphere, and it does this by throwing two heavily contrasting images right at us.
The sun has risen on years of darkness. The hunt has begun for years of hunger. Notice how that beautiful, hopeful sunrise of salvation, the end to years of darkness, is immediately paired with the aggressive start of a hunt. The relief of the light isn't a time for peace, it's a blaring alarm. It establishes this foundational duality right from the jump. Peace and violence aren't opposites here. They're happening at the exact same millisecond.
And that really beautifully illustrates this stark contrast running through the son's mind. On one hand, you've got this gentle, nurturing devotion, a promise to, quote, make moonlight overflow around you. It's this beautiful, calming, almost maternal image of providing absolute comfort. But in the exact same breath, you have this apocalyptic protectiveness, a promise to turn the earth to ashes if any harm comes his father's way. I mean, how do these two massive extremes exist in one person?
That brings us to section 2, Absolute Devotion and the Offering of Life. Because to really understand the root of this extreme duality, we got to look at how the son actually views his father. And let me tell you, this isn't just your standard familial respect. This stems from an absolute, almost religious-like worship. The text actually uses a really fascinating metaphor here. The son refers to himself as a toy made by the father. By declaring that he's merely a toy created by his father, and that the father is the very life force breathing inside it, the son is completely stripping away his own individual identity. He views himself as just an empty vessel, animated entirely and exclusively by his father's will.
And obviously, this leads to a state of absolute submission. The son literally states, "You are my God in this world," and insists his life exists solely for his father. His reverent devotion reaches a point where his very existence is entirely contingent on the father being alive. In fact, the source material explicitly notes that just the mere thought of the father's absence, even as a spoken hypothetical, is completely unbearable. It's considered far worse than death itself. The son would rather be killed than face a reality where his father doesn't exist.
All right, section 3, Destructive Vow for Protection. As that intense religious devotion sets in, well, this is where things start to escalate. Fast. This pure, self-effacing devotion morphs into a terrifyingly protective rage. The son isn't just passively worshiping anymore. He is actively guarding.
Notice how this protective instinct spirals into absolute destruction, and it happens in escalating steps. Step 1 is almost like a targeted assassination, burying the mouths of anyone who even dares to speak against the father. But of course, it doesn't stop at individual vengeance. Step 2 scales all the way up to a natural disaster, with the son promising to strike like a thunderbolt. And finally, Step 3 culminates in mass slaughter, promising to turn the land into flowing streams of blood. It's a massive escalation of violence, right? Moving from silencing individual critics to unleashing literal, apocalyptic destruction.
Moving on to section 4, Animal Metaphors, Lion and Wolves. Here, we're looking at the animalistic metaphors used to vividly describe both the external threats facing the father and the son's brutal, primal response to them. Just listen to how this builds the worldview. If wolves wag their tails at you, I will come hunting as a lion. In this universe, the wolves represent the cowardly, pack mentality threats of the outside society. They're a nuisance, sure, but dangerous in large numbers. So what's the response? The son transforms into the solitary, unstoppable apex predator, the lion. He doesn't just defend, he hunts. He turns the earth into a bloody battleground just to assert total dominance over the pack.
Let's jump into Section 5, Internal War, Betrayal by Close Ones. So the text takes a really tragic turn here, as the external war suddenly moves inward. All of this intense preparation, this readiness to destroy the outside world, it all hits a devastating roadblock.
The crucial point we need to talk about is this heartbreaking realization of internal betrayal. Quote, "I admit one truth, Father, no matter how far the battle goes, it is with those who are close." After promising to become a thunderbolt, after vowing to hunt like a lion against the wolves of the world, the son realizes the real war isn't out there, it's inside the house. This right here marks the true emotional climax of the poem.
The tragic irony here is just devastating. I mean, think about the massive scale of the son's promises, turning the earth to ashes, flowing rivers of blood. It's all rendered completely hollow. The greatest threat to the father's kingdom wasn't those external wolves wagging their tails. No, the real threat came from their own blood, from the people closest to them. The armor they spent so much time building to face the outside world, totally useless against a knife in the back from their own inner circle.
And finally, Section 6, Enduring Legacy, Conquering Death. As we wrap up this analysis, we're going to guide our attention toward the ultimate fate of the father and the enduring, blood-soaked legacy he leaves behind.
We arrive at this incredibly complex final thought from the text. Your own blood, which you distributed, has killed your death. This implies that while the father may have fallen, betrayed by those close to him, the very blood he passed down, the intense loyalty and fierce spirit he instilled, has somehow outlived his physical passing. His death was defeated by his legacy. But as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a lingering thought to ponder. Does this absolute, hyper-masculine loyalty truly conquer mortality as the text suggests? Or does it merely ensure that this tragic cycle of vengeance, betrayal, and bloodshed is just going to live forever? Thanks for exploring this fascinating material with me today, and keep questioning the deeper layers of the stories around us.